Something big just shook the Steelers' offseason. A major wide receiver trade just changed the market overnight. And now Pittsburgh suddenly has four major storylines that could reshape the entire 2026 season. Before we dive in, if you love Steelers football and want non-stop offseason coverage, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and share this video with another Steelers fan so you never miss the latest updates. Because today we've got four huge developments to break down. First, a wide receiver trade that could completely mess with Pittsburgh's offseason plans. Second, a new quarterback option quietly emerging if Aaron Rodgers walks away. Third, a surprising roster need that could shape the Steelers' draft and free agency strategy. And finally, four contract restructures that could unlock massive cap space for Pittsburgh. And once you hear how all of these pieces connect, the Steelers' entire offseason strategy suddenly looks very different. But let's start with the biggest story shaking up the receiver market. The Pittsburgh Steelers just received some unfortunate news in their hunt for a true number 2 wide receiver. The Chicago Bears have officially traded DJ Moore along with a 5th-round pick to the Buffalo Bills in exchange for a 2nd-round pick. Now, at first glance, some Steelers fans might say, well, that's fine. DJ Moore wasn't the guy we wanted anyway. But that's actually not the problem. The problem is what this trade just did to the entire wide receiver market. Because the Steelers have been actively exploring the trade market for a veteran receiver to pair with DK Metcalf. And when a deal like this happens right before free agency, it resets expectations across the league. Think about it. DJ Moore, who was arguably the 4th option at times in Chicago's offense, just commanded a 2nd-round pick in a trade. That sends a very clear message to every other team in the league. If DJ Moore costs a 2nd-round pick, then the price for top-tier receivers just went way up. And that's where things start to get complicated for Pittsburgh, because there are several names Steelers fans have been discussing in trade scenarios. Players like Jalen Waddle, players like Brian Thomas Jr., even rumors involving players like A.J. Brown have floated around. But now teams holding those players suddenly have leverage. And here's the big question Steelers fans should be asking right now. If DJ Moore costs a 2nd-round pick, what does Brian Thomas Jr. cost now? That's the real issue. Because from Jacksonville's perspective, Brian Thomas Jr. is younger, explosive, and still on a rookie contract, which means his trade value might actually be higher than DJ Moore's. And if that's the case, Pittsburgh might suddenly be looking at a 1st-round pick price tag. Now ask yourself this. Would you really trade a 1st-round pick for Brian Thomas Jr.? Because while he's extremely talented, there are concerns. He had a serious drop problem last season. In fact, only Jerry Jeudy had more drops in the entire NFL. And if you're giving up a 1st-round pick for a receiver with that issue, that's a serious risk. That's why the DJ Moore trade matters. It just raised the price for everyone. And now Pittsburgh may have to decide whether to overpay for a receiver or take a completely different approach. Which leads us to our first big question of the day. Do you think the Steelers should still pursue a big wide receiver trade this offseason or focus on free agency and the draft instead? Think about that one, because the answer might shape the entire direction of this offense. Now, while the receiver market is shifting, there's another major storyline developing at the quarterback position, and it all revolves around one man, Aaron Rodgers. For months now, the biggest question surrounding the Steelers has been simple. Will Rodgers return for another season or walk away from football? And recently, insiders have doubled down on something very important. The Steelers expect a decision from Rodgers before free agency begins. But as of right now, we're still waiting. Rodgers recently spoke publicly, and instead of giving a clear answer, he remained extremely vague about his future. Some fans believe that means he's leaning toward retirement. Others believe he's simply taking his time. But here's the reality. The Steelers cannot wait forever. They need contingency plans. And that's where a new name has started to surface. Jacoby Brissett. Now, if Rodgers decides to retire or leave Pittsburgh, Brissett could emerge as a bridge quarterback option. The idea would be simple. Bring in a veteran who can stabilize the offense for a season, while allowing young quarterback Will Howard to develop. And when you look at Brissett's career, that role actually fits him perfectly. He's never been a superstar, but he's always been reliable. A steady presence. A veteran who understands defenses, protects the football, and gives your team a chance to compete. Last season, he threw 23 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions. Those are respectable numbers. And while the Cardinals didn't dominate with him at quarterback, he proved once again that he can manage an offense effectively. Brissett is also known around the league as an excellent locker room presence, a mentor, a professional, exactly the type of quarterback who could help guide a younger player like Will Howard. And financially, he would be far cheaper than most veteran quarterbacks, which is something Pittsburgh may value if they're planning to invest heavily in other positions. So imagine this scenario for a moment. Rodgers retires. The Steelers sign Brissett. Then training camp arrives. And suddenly there's a quarterback competition between Jacoby Brissett and Will Howard. That could actually be a very realistic outcome. And honestly, Pittsburgh could do far worse. Because Brissett gives you stability. He raises the floor of the offense. And he buys time for a younger quarterback to develop. Which brings us to the question of the day. If Aaron Rodgers does not return, who should start at quarterback for the Steelers in 2026? Jacoby Brissett, Will Howard, or someone else entirely? Drop your answer in the comments. Because this decision could define the next era of Steelers football. Now let's shift to another position that's quietly becoming a major conversation in Pittsburgh. Offensive tackle. Some mock drafts have predicted the Steelers could target a tackle in the first round. Some analysts believe Pittsburgh could sign one in free agency. But is that really necessary? Right now, the Steelers have two primary options at left tackle, Dylan Cook and Broderick Jones. Jones was once seen as the long-term answer, but injuries have complicated things. He's coming off a significant neck surgery, and it's still unclear whether he'll be fully ready by training camp. And even if he is ready, there's no guarantee he automatically wins the job, because Dylan Cook stepped in last season and actually played surprisingly well. Now, yes, there were moments where he struggled. In the playoffs, he had a rough matchup against Danielle Hunter, one of the most dominant pass rushers in football. But plenty of tackles struggle against Danielle Hunter. That's not exactly a fair measuring stick. Overall, Cook showed promise. He's young, he's cheap, and he proved he can hold his own, which raises an interesting possibility. Instead of spending big money on a free agent tackle, the Steelers could simply let Cook and Jones compete for the starting job. But there is one name worth mentioning in free agency. Rasheed Walker. The former Packers tackle has quietly developed into a solid pass protector. Over the past 3 seasons, he's posted strong pass-blocking grades and shown excellent ability in quick passing schemes. That's particularly interesting if Rodgers returns, because Rodgers historically gets the ball out quickly. In fact, last season he had one of the fastest average release times among starting quarterbacks. Walker would fit that style of offense very well. But here's the problem. Offensive tackles rarely hit the open market. And when they do, they get paid. With the salary cap rising again, Walker could easily command over $20 million per year. And for Pittsburgh, that might simply be too expensive, especially when they already have 2 capable options on the roster. Finally, let's talk about something that could impact every move the Steelers make this offseason. Salary cap space. Right now, Pittsburgh has a decent amount of room to work with. But if they want to be aggressive in free agency, or if they need to bring in a quarterback, they may want even more flexibility. And that's where contract restructures come in. There are 4 players whose deals could be adjusted to create major cap savings. First is T.J. Watt. Restructuring his contract alone could free up more than $20 million. Second is DK Metcalf. Adjusting his deal could create nearly $18 million in additional space. Third is Alex Highsmith. A restructure there could save around $6 million. And finally, there's Pat Freiermuth. Tweaking his contract could generate just over $5 million in cap relief. When you combine all of those possibilities, the Steelers could potentially open up over $40 million in additional cap space. That's the kind of flexibility that allows a team to make big moves, sign impact players, extend key stars, or navigate unexpected roster changes. And with so many questions surrounding quarterback, wide receiver, and offensive line, that financial flexibility could become extremely valuable. So when you step back and look at everything happening right now, the Steelers' offseason suddenly feels like a massive puzzle. A wide receiver trade just changed the market. The quarterback situation remains uncertain. Key roster decisions are looming, and major financial moves could still reshape the team. The next few weeks could completely redefine Pittsburgh's future. And in the NFL, everything can change overnight. But one thing remains the same. Steelers fans expect one thing every single year. A team that fights. A team that competes. and a team that finds a way to stay in the hunt. The question now is simple. What move will Pittsburgh make next? Because the next domino to fall could change everything.